edit a little bit.
Pretty fully edited, so it's all good.
Yeah. So GMT fork drive.
We could actually, that would actually be cool.
There you go.
I actually wanted
Alright.
I wanted to get
That's a cool line.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I started, I want to do a sleeve, and usually you start up here, and I was just like, I'm going to start down here, because this will make me commit to it.
Oh, yeah.
If I start here, I got to go up.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just looks unfinished when I'm in a short sleeve with nothing else. So, it's fun. Like I said when we were talking earlier, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous when I saw that you wanted to come here and do this. And then I started researching, I was reading articles just to kind of get to know who you were as a person, but also a company, Brother David's and then Dr. Bronner. So, and I was like blown away because it was like Forbes magazine and all these articles. I'm like, this is a lot bigger than I ever thought possible, But one of the things that really got me excited was reading about your environmental work outside of the cannabis industry, but just as a whole. So can you talk about that a little bit and tell us more about it?
Yeah, sure. So, we're very passionate about regenerative organic agriculture. Agriculture, about 1/3 of the Earth's surface is under either farm or rangeland management. And generally it's industrial agriculture, which is very chemical intensive, pesticide intensive, fertilizer, genetically engineered crops, engineered to withstand huge amounts of weed killer.
Yeah.
And we're basically destroying huge ecosystems. We're living through the 6th grade extinction event on planet Earth. Like in geological time, it's like a comet's hitting. Agriculture is like a huge part of it. Like why are all these ecosystems in collapse? And these pesticides that don't stop killing when they go off the farm, they just keep killing all this non-target wildlife. Gets in the rivers, the synthetic nitrogen, like the Mississippi River Delta, and like nothing lives for like hundreds of square miles. It's a dead zone because of all the agricultural runoff. And so our impact, our agricultural impact is massive. I mean, obviously our energy sector and transportation are other high impact industries. We have to transition all of them to a more sustainable basis. But when we talk about agriculture, it's like how do we farm in nature's image? And you look at like a forest, and there's no synthetic, chemical inputs. There's no external inputs. It's totally self-regenerating.
Yeah.
So how do we grow the food we eat, the fiber from the clothes we wear, the medicines we consume, fill ourselves with? How do we grow all these in a way that replicates nature? And so we're very passionate in figuring out, okay, so nature, there's diversity. It's never like one monoculture. It's a diverse. And so depending on your system, so an annual system, it's about having smart crop rotations. Mm-hmm. So instead of just growing like corn back to back, or corn and soy, you build up huge amounts of pest pressure, and you need more and more chemicals. But if you have a diversity, like you don't get these pest cycles that you get. And if you're smart about it, you can actually control those pest cycles in a smart way without chemicals. You plant perimeter plantings that are predator and pollinator friendly. So the predator insects will control your pests naturally. You just have these perimeter plantings. And so, like in Dr. Bronner's world, our major ingredients are coconut, palm, olive, and mint. Mm-hmm. So these are tree crops, except mint. And so when we're talking, like we'd say palm is like a disaster on the planet. It's like they're ripping up the rainforest to grow these plantations of palm, displacing small farmer communities, forced off their land and become plantation workers for slave wages. It's hugely disruptive. But we're showing you can grow palm. We're actually in Ghana. We have a really cool project there. Okay. And we're working with like 800 farmers, and they're actually intercropping palm, cocoa, banana, and cassava. And palm's tall, and then banana and cocoa are kind of mid-level, and cassava's on the ground. And this is called dynamic agroforestry or multi-strata agroforestry. And what you're doing is you understand how the canopies fill in as they mature. Mm-hmm. So, like in a forest, you've got these like tall trees, mid-level trees, and ground cover. So when you replicate that in a farming ecosystem, you do it right. You understand how the plants complement and what the distance.
Right.
And it's knowledge. It's knowledge and then so that agriculture, not chemical.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do this right, you're going to double your yields. If you did each of those crops in a monoculture block in the same area, you're going to double the yield. You're going to minimize your pest and weed pressure. You're going to put huge amounts of carbon into the ground. So agriculture, industrial agriculture, is ripping up it's destroying the life in the soil. So soil's like a super rich ecosystem of mycorrhiza and all kinds of microbiota. So we're killing that with all these chemicals, and all the carbon in that life is just oxidized to the atmosphere. A huge amount of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy because, we did things like this, like what you're talking about for thousands of years. Why did we change it? Why did, it's like the vegetable, like when you get a homegrown vegetable, you don't put anything on it, or you go to a farmer's market, it's so much better. Like, those tomatoes are better, just everything, it just tastes better. And so it's crazy to think that we're okay, that we've allowed that to happen. And I think we need more people like you guys putting the word out there too, because you just taught me a bunch of stuff that I didn't even know.
Yeah, well, and what changed, man, is basically the ag chemical industry, the pesticide industry, basically bought the seed industry, and is engineering all of our major crops to withstand wheat growth. And their agenda, they're just purely profit driven. They don't care about if they're ripping up, our ecosystems or if the fertility of the soil is being destroyed. So long as they're selling more chemicals, we live in that's a good food system.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Like it's never going to run out or something. They think we're just going to live forever. So they don't think of the down the road, generations from now, what that effect is.
Yeah, not at all, man. They're just pure profit, right? I mean, it's not like the head of Monsanto. You can like give him acid and he'll wake up and like, we need to stop doing what we're doing. They'll fire him in a second and bring in somebody who will toe the line. And you realize you're not dealing with people, you're dealing with these transhuman profit entities that just don't give a shit about ecological health or social well-being. They're just
as long as their bank accounts get bigger.
Exactly. So we just have to be conscious and you have to choose as a consumer. You have to find who's doing it right and support them.
So when I was reading through and doing some research, I saw that you had a few run-ins with the law because of what you're trying to get out there, what you're trying to teach people. And I thought it was kind of funny because is it true that you planted seeds? Was it the DEA? Yeah. Tell me about that. I got to hear about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we put hemp seed oil in the soap in '99. So after college, I was in Amsterdam, and long story short, just really woke up to the drug war being like a big sense of religious war on the side of our people, proxy to go after the counterculture and activists, people of color, and that that cannabis and psychedelics are just such incredible allies that help us wake up, be our better selves, heal ourselves, and just be way more awesome and authentic and connected to each other and to nature. And so hemp was, and then I discovering hemp and reading Jack Harris' book, Ep.4, realizing that cannabis is, just this incredible crop that, not only does it provide life-saving medicine, it's super safe, but, fiber that's just incredible for textiles, for clothes, for construction, for just all kinds of stuff. And that the government had done this, basic systematic cover of hemp history in America. It was like one of our most important crops. Jamestown, it was illegal not to grow hemp, like a 10% of your farm, and all the clipper ships, their sails and ropes and all the canvas covered wagons. Hemp was crucial. But all that was buried in this history. And, and basically the government didn't want anything contradicting their narrative that cannabis is a plant with roots in hell and no roots in hell. And so, so hemp was really at the nexus, and it's also an incredible agricultural crop. It grows like a weed, and need a lot of pesticides and fertilizers. It lends itself well to a regenerative organic rotation. So it was kind of at the nexus of one being like the most ridiculous example of this hysterical, out of control drug war. That would take this non-drug agricultural crop and make it a Schedule 1 substance. You know, it's just like so
Crazy.
ridiculous. And then it was a really awesome, sustainable crop as an example of sustainable agriculture. So we were really excited in '99. Put hemp seed oil in the soap. We were, Canada had just commercialized hemp farming in '98. But then we got Bush, and Bush. Then we got 9/11, and just this totally draconian, like right wing, going after all the medical marijuana dispensaries after hemp. We got out in this big fight with the government over hemp seed. We were importing hemp seed oil from Canada at the time, and they tried to shut us down. And we got in this big fight with them, and handed them their first big legal defeat.
Wow.
And first in 2002, we had our initial defeat, and it was February 6th. And then in 2004, February 6th, final clean sweep in the Ninth Circuit. February 6th, Bob Marley's birthday. So
Nice, that's awesome.
So fast forward to 2009, finally Bush is out, we've got Obama, but now we're in the second year of Obama. Nothing's really changed, right? We're all getting real disappointed. We're like, it's the same drug warriors, same drug, asinine, like ridiculous policy. And Obama had voted, twice for industrial hemp cultivation as an Illinois state senator. And Jack had just had a stroke, and we were just all like, really fed up. So we came with this plan. Okay, we're going to dig up the EPA's lawn and plant hemp seeds and just really like raise the profile of like how ridiculous it is that the government is still prohibiting this incredible crop. So we made these special shovels that says American farmers will grow hemp again, reefer madness will be buried, in honor of Jack. And knowing that the DEA was going to confiscate it. But as we were digging up the lawn, it was like kind of feeling like they're like stakes, like wooden stakes in the heart of the vampire. Someday we're going to kill this beast. And actually on the same time, we had allies discover Lester Dewey. So Lester Dewey was the USDA's agronomist back at the turn of the century who did all the hemp plantings. He actually grew out different varieties of hemp so that American farmers would know which ones were good for their geographical region. And the government farm was the Arlington Farms. And Arlington Farms is where the Pentagon is. So the Pentagon was actually sited on the government's own hemp farm.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So that all came out at the same time. We were digging up the lawn. So there's this big Washington Post story about us digging up the lawn, but then also more importantly about in fact the U.S. government was actually promoting hemp and growing it out where the Pentagon is.
It's crazy because I heard that, I don't know how much truth there is to it, or maybe you'll know, but that if we grew hemp and made our clothes and our paper products and all the things that it's capable of making, that we literally wouldn't have to cut down any more trees. That we could just let the forest grow. We wouldn't have to do that, aside from building houses, obviously. And that it was literally just a money thing from a paper company that made it. Is that true? Like that got him?
Yeah, right. So the Hearst Empire. So it was a big newspaper, baron. So hemp was seen as a threat to the various industrial interests. It was also, just the timing in the 30s. You had this really, traumatized populace from the Great Depression, and different interests were playing off of, pent-up racism and scarcity of jobs, and alcohol prohibition just ended. So you had all these out of work government whatever enforcers. So they're just targeting Mexicans and blacks, and said, made up all these crazy stories. About smoking a joint, killing your mother, and all this stuff.
Yeah, it's sad because it grows so quickly, it replenishes very fast, and it's an amazing plant. I wish there was more education about it, and then just more, because I don't even know anything anywhere around here that they're even growing just hemp. Is there farms out here?
Yeah, I would say. Most of the hemp farms are more in the Midwest, and in Kentucky and stuff, which kind of makes sense. That's the historical kind of hemp part of it. Kentucky, especially, it's interesting. Mitch McConnell, obviously is generally a disaster on drug policy reform. He actually was our champion on hemp in the Senate because tobacco was going down the tubes, and all of a sudden hemp for CBD became this huge thing. So all of a sudden Mitch McConnell became an advocate for hemp.
That's cool.
But
So, I also read that after college you spent some time in Amsterdam. I want to go someday. Hopefully I get a chance to go there. Talk about that a little bit, because I read that was like a kind of an eye-opening thing for you. Kind of seemed like to me like it was kind of a catalyst to get you to where you are today. Kind of was the kickoff.
Yeah, no, man. Yeah. So, I mean, in college, I kind of retired from alcohol culture and just realized how much better it is to go on with your friends and listen to music. Don't get drunk every weekend. It's just such a much more high vibration. Just like a lot of people, it's just like your entree, like, dude, this is so obviously better than alcohol. The authorities are obviously wrong.
Yeah.
Just a real eye-opening experience. And of course, Amsterdam was like the mecca, and this is before Prop 215 in California. So the whole, the kind of epicenter of cannabis culture was in Amsterdam. So I had a Eurail pass, and it was in Amsterdam. It intersected the Cannabis Cup, the 8th annual Cannabis Cup.
Oh, wow.
And I was in a squad. It's international activists, scene of artists, activists, like Ed Rosenthal, and like all these guys. Saw hemp for the first time, and actually, like some really key people was his name was Sam Smith. This guy Sam Smith, and he was part of this church in Arkansas, called our church, and they formed in 1993 in Arkansas with cannabis as their sacrament to make a First Amendment challenge to the constitutional challenge of the drug law, basically a religious right to use cannabis as a sacrament. And of course, in 1993 in Arkansas, that was going to work out, and the feds busted them up. And a couple of these guys were in my squad. They were like on the run, like facing 10 years to life. Wow! If they went set foot, if they came back, And it was like these peaceful hippie vegetarian rad cats, and it was just like really woke me up. Like, dude, like the drug war is just like, it's just like shredding people's lives for no reason. Yeah. This is like such a beautiful sacrament, and it is like a religious war in a large sense. It's like, direct experience of the divine and of our deeper selves, and how threatening that is to the dominant order. And and then I also had some huge psychedelic experiences in this time, and experienced ego death into the love and light at the heart of reality. That was, I never had thought that was, in fact the case. And, in the midst of our suffering and absurdity, that love is at the heart. And realized that my granddad, Dr. Bronner, his whole life, he was saying, like, all the faith traditions are pointing at this transcendent love when they're not making idols out of their beliefs and demonizing each other. And so I just really fundamentally understood what my grandfather's like driving passion was, which my whole life up till then, like, didn't get it. I was like, we got to unite this spaceship work. Well, one or none, I didn't understand. So, and Amsterdam was really where it all like kind of came together, and realized what a gift that my family and my grandfather had made. And,
So that actually sounds like an amazing experience. What brought you back?
Yeah, and it wasn't a straight line from me like to Bronner's. Actually, what I mostly was going to do was just grow plants and be an activist. Came back, I became vegetarian and vegan. Like, just really upset about like just the disaster of Western consumption on the planet. And collectively, we were just like the planet alive. We just needed to figure this out. And so I came back, sold all my stuff, moved back to Amsterdam to grow plants and be an activist. My parents were more, I think, concerned about me becoming vegan than growing cannabis. But that, it didn't work out after a few months, for various reasons, huge, big life things. My partner at the time, who's to become my wife, had gotten pregnant, and she was going to come out to be in Amsterdam with me, but miscarried, and it was just time for me to go back and be with her, and get a mental health counselor. And my granddad a lot of life things with my daughter. Then our daughter being born when same day my granddad died, and then my dad got sick, and just having to like step in to run Bronner's at a young age, at 24.
Wow. Yeah, that's young.
Yeah, but Amsterdam, it was short, like, only a few months, but it was just like a really crucible time where I just, one, like understood what drove my granddad, but two, was going to do my own thing, be a cannabis entrepreneur, do this whole thing. But then coming back in the course of a couple of years, realizing, if a company like Dr. Bronner's were to give me a job, I'd go for it in a second.
Yeah.
Leaving alone, I'd have to work for my dad, who's awesome, but didn't want to do my own thing. But then got to a point, I'm like, dude, this is a real honor.
Yeah.
And I got to choose to come in basically a month before he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And but fortunately, I was able to make that choice. Wasn't like compelled, like I made that choice, and then had an amazing year with my dad, downloading the ropes before he passed in '98.
Priceless time.
Yeah.
I got to work with my dad a little bit for a couple of years, and that's something I'll always remember, because you take it for granted. You see him every day, but grew up with him. But it is, now I look back on it, we don't work together, and I'm like, there's days I miss it a lot.
Yeah.
But I always have those memories too, so that's really cool. So when you came back, you're taking over the company. Where did Brother David's come from? Like, how did that come to?
Well, that's funny. So Brother David's is kind of like full circle, like the cannabis entrepreneur that I never was.
Yeah.
So like in Dr. Bronner's, we're really passionate about regenerative organic agriculture and about establishing direct relationships with the farmers who grow our materials in the right kind of way, to take care of their land and their people and communities in the right kind of way, rather than these like huge kind of corporate interests that are they're not even, their homes aren't even where the community is, and are very disruptive to the community and to the ecosystem. So we've already had a lot of experience setting up these agricultural projects. First around coconut and palm. And then olive oil. There's a cool project in Palestine and Israel. I mean, primarily on the Palestinian side, that's doing really cool stuff with olive oil. And we source olive oil primarily from Palestine, but then also the balance from Israel, half from a Jewish family farm and half from an Arab Christian project. So we've got Muslim, Christian, Jewish olive oil in our soap. It's like all like all one. And so, and at the same time we were doing all that, we were, putting a lot of financial resources and organizational resources to ending cannabis prohibition, like first supporting ASA, Americans for Safe Access, and then the, different, state ballot measures and Prop 19 in 2010 in California, and then, Washington and Colorado in 2012, and DC, like our we were the main sponsors of DC in 2014. And then, of course, California, a bunch of states, in 2016. But, as we start winning, we start seeing like, oh man, dude, like we weren't paying enough attention to the other side. And just, seeing like these kind of regulatory frameworks getting set up that really favored the big players and the small craft cannabis farmers who've, been supplying the world for all this time, just kind of getting shafted.
Yeah.
Kind of the same story as every other agricultural commodity was playing out. Where big corporate industrial interests are coming in and doing these huge indoor grows, and the small farmers, like it's just such a difficult access to deal with the regulatory rigmarole and burden, so Brother David's, well, first of all, Sun and Earth was the vision to how do we get a consumer-facing program like USDA organic, but because of federal prohibition, cannabis farmers can't access the organic program. The term organic is like you can't use it. So then it's like, well, how do we get that? But it's been a very effective program for farmers doing it right to connect with consumers, although it's got its problems. And so Sun and Earth was basically the certification that like top cannabis farmers came together to develop, and we were supporting that. And once the standard was set, and basically it's cannabis grown in soil, under the sun, no chemicals, fair labor, by farmers who are engaged with their communities. Once this was set up, then the question was, okay, well, how do we educate people about this cool program.
Yeah.
So that was where Brother David's is like, okay, well, let's make a not-for-profit brand platform that will be in the store. We'll be able to talk to consumers at point of sale, bud tenders, like, hey, there's this cool program. You should think about your medicine the same way you think about your food. No pesticides in the soil. Taking care of people, and we're not for profit to make clear that we want to see all our competition be sun and earth. Like we exist simply and only to promote sun and earth in the market, and to help farmers, who are doing it right, connect with consumers and like-minded brands. And so that's basically what Brother David's all about.
I think that was the thing that surprised me the most, because in this industry, for sure, it's like everybody's drawn to it because it's like, oh, I'm going to make a ton of money and, make my fortune. And to see a company that's not for profit is like that. It's unheard of. So I think that's probably the coolest thing I've ever heard from any company. And you guys teamed up with Flocana. Are you still with them? Like partnered with them?
No, we're not.
No?
I don't want to speak. Let's just say that didn't quite work out. We're now with Mosaic, and really, really psyched and wish Flocana well. Yeah. And but really psyched now to be partnered with Mosaic.
That's awesome.
And Ned's homie from back when, and cool. Really resonating to the mission here. And Sun and Earth is really starting to get traction with other brands, including Farmer and the Felon. And we're really excited. Chemistry, some other brands. Our ideal is to start seeing all the Sun and Earth brands being like merchandised together, and the way you see like organic section and stuff. It's like a Sun and Earth.
Here we were just actually talking about that, like having a section that people could go to for that, and then it would have something similar to like some of the companies have the QR codes where they can read about it and get more information on it. And that's what I think this episode of the podcast is going to really help with that too, for our customers and everybody, really just to get it out there, because I didn't know about it until you guys came and did some training with us, and now it's one of those things that I actually look for when I'm looking at labels and things like that, because it's, to me, it's the way it's nature intended it to be grown. Why play with it? Everybody has this idea like, oh, the indoor flowers are the best ever, but I don't necessarily agree.
Right on, man. Exactly. And that's it. I mean, it's like we feel like over time, and that we're hopefully part of this, that people should be thinking about cannabis flowers the same way they think about wine, and that the terroir of the land and the people, and like all that essence and awesomeness in your flower, instead of like how much THC were you able to jack up in the indoor under fossil fuel driven lights. And you guys are also a part of Last Prisoner project too. We're supporters. We support a lot of different organizations in the space. Definitely a huge fan of Farmer and Felon's mission-driven ethic, and like to see other, equity focused brands that exist for some other reason than just making money.
So I was reading the label on the soap here that you brought, and on there it says something about, it talks about like psychedelics and things like that. And that's not something you would typically see like at a store on a shelf. Like, have you ever had anybody like give you any flack about that?
It's funny because we'll do our port labels. We'll, every once in a while there'll be a campaign we're engaged in, and we'll switch it up. Usually it's my granddad's religious political philosophy about one love. But, like we've done a GMO labeling, just the importance of like labeling, letting you know whether or not your food's been engineered to be soaked in weed killer, And then we did a label about minimum wage and how important it is for, people to be able to make ends meet. Should we wait for that?
No, you're good.
Okay. So should we, like the importance of people making ends meet on the wages they receive and not have to be forced on getting handouts, get a whole label. That one was controversial because a lot of our like customers are like, big box stores and stuff. They're like not in favor of the minimum wage. But the psychedelic one, we thought it was going to be more controversial than it was. And we just did. So the Heal Soul. I thought we would get maybe like 3 weeks with like the Targets and the Walmarts and the Walgreens, you know, like before like people started freaking out. And, you know, it was going to be this big activist thing, and I was like telling my family, "Get ready, we're going to have to swab all this soap." but seriously, while like we didn't get one complaint, we got nothing but positive feedback, and just the Heal Soul label is all about psychedelic healing, and just we're in a moment in the culture where I think everybody understands that like we have an epidemics of, you know, depression and end of life anxiety and addiction, and modern pharma is failing us. And yeah, the message landed in a way that like, you know, even the Walgreens buyer was like, you know, because we had this other label, Heal Earth, was this all about regenerative act? Said, no, I want Heal Soul about psychedelics for their like in-store flyer.
Yeah, wow.
You know, in Walgreens, you know, and it's just like, wow, what a shift.
Yeah, because when I was telling some friends about it, one of them had the bigger bottle, and it had that label on it, and he was like, "Have you read the label on it?" And I'm like, "No, I've seen the bottle. I don't really ever read that kind of stuff, but I will now going forward for sure, because I think that's really cool, and I think it's definitely speaks to like what you said. It's resonating with people, and I think people finally are getting to the point where they realize that like the pharmaceutical companies don't have our best interests at heart. You know,
No,
if it was up to the VA and other places that I've gone to for care, I'd still be on all kinds of prescription medications for pain and whatnot. And if it wasn't for for cannabis, I would still be getting and now I take zero, and I have so many success stories of customers that have come in here, and now after a year of coming here, they're either highly like they've reduced way back on their medications, or they're not on them at all. So you know, I'm really looking forward to like seeing what California does as far as like the decriminalization of, you know, psilocybin and things like that, because I really do think, you know, that's all the medicine we need comes from the earth. We don't need to have all the pharmaceutical stuff, you know.
No, 100%. And, you know, I can't wait for insurance to cover. I mean, because obviously cannabis is saving, you know, everybody a ton of money on top of saving lives, and it should be covered by insurance. You know, people like the fact that you're reducing your reliance on all these opiates and SSRIs and you know, and all the economic savings. So this needs to be covered by insurance, and you know, hopefully we'll get that.
That would be amazing. In the meantime, you know, like we just had, I don't know if you've heard about them, but the Dear Cannabis girls here, and that's their big focus, is like making cannabis accessible to people that can't afford it, because not everybody can come in here and buy it, and you know what they need. And I think that's kind of what has kept a lot of people from making that
enjoying
that.
Benefits,
yeah, because you know the insurance covers all the other things, but they won't cover this, and you know, so I think that you guys are playing a big role in making that happen. So I look forward to seeing how that all comes together.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, but on the psychedelic, so SB 519 is the Senate bill moving right now that will decriminalize all plant medicines and synthetic psychedelics. So even LSD, Ibogaine. You know, Ibogaine's crucial for people struggling with opiate addiction. It will really help interrupt that. So yeah, we're you know, optimistic that, you know, this is going to succeed, and we'll have decriminalized all psychedelics here inside the year. So
that'd be amazing. Might be able to go to a dispensary and get more than just cannabis.
Yeah, well, you know, initially it'll be decriminalized.
Yeah.
So it'll be like kind of in the, you know, the decriminalized strain, and then eventually, it'll be more of a legal market.
Yeah, I saw some already companies are messing around with different packagings and things like that, kind of preparing themselves for when that happens.
No, totally, man, and that has its own, you know, concern. You know, we've definitely been a little bummed out, let's just say, by kind of the cannabis, like a lot of the kind of major players in the cannabis space don't have that like healing and wellness or vibe or intent or purpose at the heart of what they're doing. And we're hoping for psychedelics that can be different. And, you know, we're definitely starting to see examples that are not great of, you know, just kind of like profiteering corporations entering the space. But we're hoping that they're, you know, I'm on the board of MAPS, and we've got the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, and we're moving MDMA through FDA approval process for PTSD, and setting up a company to do it. And then that company is, you know, hopefully going to be generating tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. But all of that is owned by the nonprofit parent to go back into the ecosystem of helping decriminalize the medicines, making them accessible, making sure people who can't afford it, can get access.
Okay. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know any of that. So I want to have you back, like in a year from now, just to see where we've come. See what what you guys have been able to accomplish. Because I don't see any end to what you guys are able to do. It's crazy. I'm literally like almost speechless right now because I didn't realize that you guys were doing that. Yeah. So what can everybody that comes here to get Brother David's, what can we expect like in the next 6 months, 12 months? Like what do you guys have on the horizon coming up?
Yeah, man, just more of the same, awesome, highest quality, sun-grown outdoor flower. I mean, these guys are like, you can just taste and feel the love.
Yeah,
of
it
these
is
flowers.
good. It is really good. I just got the special cookies the other day, and I was like, as soon as I cracked the jar, I'm like, this smells amazing.
Yeah.
Like I almost just want to leave it like out just so I could, almost like an air freshener. It smells so good. But it is really good flower. I like it.
Yeah, right on. I mean, I'm a pretty sativa guy, but yeah, the cookies and the blueberry muffin is like pretty amazing. But we got some really good Jack Herer and some really good sativas, but yeah, some really good.
The pre-rolls I like too because perfect little size for your pocket. So I love that. Take it with me.
Right on.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming out here and taking the time to talk to us. I really can't wait to release this episode because I think it's going to open the eyes of a lot of people, not just people that come to Doobie Nights, because the goal is to reach out beyond our customer base. And so, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Donald.
Yeah.
And and I'll say just like our future. I mean, obviously, we're hoping to grow the brand and stuff, but way more importantly, by a billion times, is sun and earth growing.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that like Farmer and the Felon and chemistry and like other brands are starting to adopt that for us is like that's how it would.
So before we go, how would brands, if they wanted to get involved, do that?
Yeah, we'll go to the Sun and Earth website, sunandearth.org.
Okay.
And Heather Dunbar is helping coordinate and connect Sun and Earth certified farmers with brands that are interested in sourcing Sun and Earth.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see because there's so many farms out here. You would think get them all, put the pressure on them.
Yeah. Right
Get
on.
them involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was good to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right on, but, yeah.